in the course of running a project, midway through, there are design changes. So who should pay for the VOs for such design changes? Does it come from the contingency sum for such design changes?
No, in this case, you're talking about design changes that the client wants, right? Is it correct?
Or your design improvement.
Or our own design improvement, and it has to. Okay.
Depends, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear.
Probably.
Yeah, it's very clear if it's a design change and then it results in a variation. Then, and of course, if the client is the client's decision, then of course, it comes from the contingency. So if there is within the contract, essentially it means that the client has to pay for it, right? But if it's something that we voluntarily improve on, I don't think we can immediately assume that the client has to pay for it, because we have to justify why we want to make that change.
Try to explain to the client first and so on.
To explain to the client, why is it that we are suggesting this? And of course, if we didn't do our duty and then maybe it was a compliance thing and then we had to make it right, then I think that is another. Of course the client will pay for it first, but they may then say that, okay, it's our fault, we have to then compensate them. Yeah, so I think that is fair, if that's the case. Yeah.
So for design changes, like if you want to improve on it, then you probably will highlight to the clients first, this is what you're thinking about.
I would guess so, because it belongs to them, right? So it's not your development.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, as another point would be, I think it's back to what we discussed right at the start, right? Which would be, are you afraid of the client, right? Or intimidated? So I think the points you brought up was about expectations and managing it as a service provider. I tend to be optimistic about this design variation thing, right? Because I feel that if your relationship with the client is good, it's based on aligned expectations, even a design change that might come up from an oversight, or variation, they come up from an oversight. In my own experience, the client usually is like, okay, fine,
yes,
let's just move on.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Especially if it also improves the design, then okay, so why not? As long as it's not an exorbitant sum.
It goes back to the point that we made earlier about that relationship and dynamic with the client. Yeah. If you start off being like very antagonistic or you start off being like very subservient, then I don't think you have that much room to negotiate. Yeah, if you are, I'm just a service provider, I'm not really, I'm equal standing, I'm professional, I should be able to then have a very decent negotiation.
Yeah. So what about, for example, in situations where it's a cost-saving thing? So when it comes to a stage where the contractor looks at it and say, I'm sure you've met situations where the contractor talk to the client without your presence and they go, actually, I can help you save X amount of dollars, if you change this and change that. And that actually will result in you having to do a lot of work to capture the changes. Now, would you do a claim on additional fee or things like that for because very often I think clients can only focus on, there's cost savings, I will do it. Can you help me do it? And then they just take it for granted that my architect's going to change, I'm going to save money. But without realizing that we are actually, burning resources to help them save money. Would you typically charge an additional fee for such a demand and request?
I guess it depends on the extent of the change. If the change affects what's already been approved with the authorities, then that's the resubmission required. So that gives a very easy reason for the additional charges and fees. But if the change is, in the context of the project, minor, or something that's not going to take up so much of resources, then it's your own judgment call whether you're okay to accommodate. For example, let's say we change the WC.
No, those are easy.
Those are easy, right? I mean, I'm using a very super low line group. Okay, shift the wall. Oh, that's quite easy too. So I think it depends. But I think that the takeaway from that is more of, yes, I can do it for you, but we will rather not continue to make these changes because it might jeopardize the overall timeline, or things like that. That you can't. It's not a blank check lah. So I guess it depends on the context.
Same. Yeah, it depends on the context, the extent of the change. Again, going back to the point about quantifying the amount of changes and then setting a rate to it right at the start. Yeah. So again, yeah, if it requires a lot of work, then of course it's fair. We just need to make sure like we have the contractual clause to cover that.
That's true.
It kind of reminds me in situations like that. If I'm not wrong, PSS COC allows the contractor to get some kind of additional fee or something else. I cannot remember. Sorry. Yeah, but then I also then think about it. Yeah, why are not architects rewarded for helping them think of ways along the way that it doesn't of course jeopardize the design or any compliance issues. Yeah, but we are not actually rewarded for things like that. No. Yeah. Not too sure about really wanting to put a clause in to say, oh, okay, if you save a certain amount and then I'm entitled to a certain percentage. Yeah, but I think, yeah, it's still that point about being very clear and setting the boundaries. How much more work am I supposed to do, and it has a value to it.
I mean, I guess I suppose if you set a reward, right, as an architect, you can design it such that it's so expensive, and then after that, value design it back to cost saving.
No, that's for the bad hats.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so sorry.
No, yeah.
Yeah, but how about maybe because there are bound to be design improvements along the way of a project. Have we all considered design contingency sum proposed to your clients?
I have
Which means
inbuilt
at the
design
start inbuilt already,
I have
right?
inbuilt.
I'm considering to try something like that. Because it will happen and you want to manage the expectation right on the onset to tell them that, hey, there may be things that maybe you may want to improve certain design, or I may have sudden ideas on the details of stuff. We can use the design contingency sum to work on it. But I feel that at the start, if they have set aside a certain budget on such scenarios, they are more willing to do it than you have it as a VO.
True.
So it's something for
Yeah, it's about the
consideration.
controlling of expectations, setting
Right at the start.
expectations.
Yeah.
Because if you don't use it, they see it as a saving.
Yes.
And if they use it, they say, okay, it's actually part of the contract sum.
Your design is so good since the start.
Yeah, so that's good. I mean, contingency sum, yes, but I never thought of it as a separate one, which is more for design.
X amount fees. Then, by the way, 1% design contingency.
Something for us to think about.
Yeah, but that is utilizing that psychology of okay, this is like kind of like the money I'm prepared to pay out anyway. Yeah, and you apportion a certain amount more for contingencies like that. Yeah,
because
may not be a bad idea.
The way I see it is that the condition of contract already set a baseline, and we should be using our experiences to try to watertight this contract in your own experience or the way that your practice wants to do it. So that's how I think, at least that's how I would try to approach crafting contracts and try to, as we grow experience, make this contract covers all grounds and manage the expectation of the client since the onset. Yeah.